In the courtyard of my grandfather's dilapidated tiled house, I took my last breath. Heavy snow buried my entire body, as if I had never existed. My short, thin coat, exposing my ankles, couldn't hide the frostbite sores. Even in death, I never fulfilled the wish of wearing a proper set of new clothes. My soul drifted to a place over 300 kilometers away, a place ablaze with lights and shimmering neon, my parents' and little brother's home. The whole city lit up, welcoming the chime of midnight. Oh, it's almost Lunar New Year. At some point, my soul arrived in the living room. The house was festively decorated, filled with joyful energy. My mother was showing off the new clothes and shoes she had bought for my younger brother. So many, in fact, that he wouldn't even have to stay up until midnight to wear new clothes. But my brother was absorbed in playing games on his phone, barely glancing up, not responding at all. Perhaps annoyed or disappointed, my mother put the clothes down, looked toward my grandfather's house, and scolded me. That damned girl, it's New Year and she can't even call home. She's always been the coldest one in the family. My soul hovered beside her. I could see and touch, but they couldn't hear my voice. My father clicked his tongue in irritation. It's New Year. Don't bring up things that ruin the mood. The atmosphere turned lively again. Snow piled against the windows, where a bright red character for spring was pasted. But they didn't know that the daughter they always despised had permanently left this world. She would never trouble them again. If they knew I had died, would they regret abandoning me? 5 months ago, my parents divorced in a court full of chaos. In the courtroom, they clung to my little brother, unwilling to let go, yet quietly pushed me aside. My brother's expensive designer clothes were nearly torn to shreds in their endless tug-of-war. He cried, his tiny hands wrapped in woolen gloves, covering his ears, utterly distressed. I don't want to choose. I don't want to choose. Wearing only a thin autumn jacket, I stood off to the side, stomping my feet from the cold, ashamed and wishing I could disappear. Subconsciously, I scratched at the back of my hand, where frostbite sores itched uncontrollably, like an outsider. My mother held tightly to my brother's arm and refused to let go. I don't want Henin, always looking like a beggar. Min Min has to stay with me. My father firmly pulled my brother back. You don't want Henin? Then what is she supposed to do? Why should I be the one to raise her? My mother wouldn't back down. Henin is old enough to take care of herself. Just because I don't want her doesn't mean she'll die. The judge sighed. Henin was me. Min Min was my little brother. After a long argument, they finally reached an agreement. My mother would take care of Min Min from Monday to Wednesday. My father from Thursday to Saturday, and on Sundays, they'd share custody. And me? My father awkwardly turned to me. What about you, Henin? Their voices were hesitant, but their eyes carried pressure, as if they were demanding the right answer from the obedient child, fearing I might actually choose one of them. Looking at their happy family, I pressed my chapped lips together. Can you lend me 200 yuan? I'm sick. My mother frowned. Her voice was no longer as gentle as it was when speaking to my brother. What's wrong with you? We're in the middle of a divorce, and all you care about is money. You're so heartless. My father didn't look pleased either. What kind of illness needs 200 yuan? So young, yet already scheming to get money. I also wished it was just a lie to get 200 yuan from them. But cancer doesn't lie, it really kills people. A week ago, my parents took my brother to Disneyland for his birthday. At the same time, I stood outside a hospital, clutching the money I had saved for so long, mustering the courage to go in. I had been bleeding for nearly a month. And when I asked my mom, she said it was normal. When the test results came back, the doctor looked grave and asked, "Where are your parents?" Embarrassed, I forced a smile. They had something to do and left. Just tell me. Unable to persuade me otherwise, the doctor finally said it outright. Sweetheart, I'm afraid you've been diagnosed with cervical cancer. If we treat it aggressively, I'll be cured. You'll live for a few more years. Aside from hereditary factors, poverty is also a cause of this illness. In my case, it was purely poverty. I hit puberty early and started menstruating at age 10. But my parents gave me so little money that I could only buy cheap sanitary pads, 10 yuan a pack, and used them for 5 years. Turns out poverty really can cause cancer. Having a child with cancer seems like a tragedy, but seeing how my parents viewed me as a burden, it didn't seem like such a bad thing after all. To show my sincerity, I made a firm request in court. Leave the old brick house in the countryside to me. I won't go with either of you. At that moment, both of them breathed a sigh of relief. My issue was solved, and their conflict suddenly disappeared. In the end, murmuring between themselves, for the sake of my brother's mental health, they decided not to divorce and to try staying together. And so, a joyful spring reunion of 3 began. The familiar host on the Spring Festival Gala smiled brightly, counting down with the stars. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. My mother brought out the red envelope she had prepared and gave one to my brother. He shouted in delight, tore it open, and frowned a little. Why only 6,000 yuan? Then he grinned again. It's great that sister isn't here. This whole 6,000 is mine. After the countdown ended, the festive mood faded into a heavy stillness, leaving everyone with a sense of dull emptiness. My father paced irritably in the living room before stepping outside. My mother went to the kitchen to cut fruit for my brother. Lost in thought, the knife slipped and cut her finger. Blood gushed out suddenly, and she turned toward the living room and shouted, "Han!" Then she remembered I was no longer in the house. She sighed impatiently, Min, bring me the antiseptic and some band-aids." I frowned, looking at myself through my mother's hand. There was only emptiness. My little brother didn't care. He just clicked his tongue impatiently, "Don't bother me. I'm guarding the house, my tower's about to light up." My mother clutched her wound, smiling tenderly as she walked out. Absent-mindedly, she spotted the white medical kit in the cupboard and stopped, her gaze distant. It was the medical kit I had specially prepared for her. Inside, apart from basic cold medicine, there were also plasters for back pain. After giving birth to my younger brother, she often suffered from backaches. Back then, besides massaging her day and night, I would stick the pain relief patches on her to help soothe her discomfort. She picked up a patch, read the instructions, and remained silent. I watched her, trying to catch a trace of emotion on her face. But there was nothing, until suddenly, she turned toward me, angry. "All you know is how to put on silly acts. If only you were more like your brother and made people worry less. I don't even know what illness you had. Was it cured yet?" "Mom. There's no need to cure it anymore. The one obedient thing I did best was dying without bothering you and Dad." Just then, Dad came back inside, snow covering his head. He brushed it off and hastily pulled a letter from his pocket. I immediately recognized it. It was the letter I had sent them 2 weeks ago. 2 days after mailing it, I had sent the tracking number to my father. He never replied. Probably didn't care. Yet now, during New Year's, he had gone to pick it up. Hearing it was from me, my mother, for once, seemed interested. She came over with a curious expression, eager for gossip. When the letter was opened, the first thing that fell out was a crumpled 200 yuan bill. Before my parents left me, they had given me 200 yuan. After all the desperation and despair, that bill was all I had left. Looking at the 2 yuan cabbage rice meal in a convenience store, I wondered for a long time, should I die full or die hungry? In the end, I decided to return it all to them. My father's eyes paused for a moment, then his usual arrogance returned. He pointed to the 200 yuan bill with smug satisfaction. "See? I told you she was faking it. She didn't even spend the money, must have been afraid we'd catch her lying." He didn't forget to add, "And she even had the nerve to send money back. Huh? If she ever needs anything again, I won't give her a single cent. Let her learn who her real father is." Disgust brimmed openly in my mother's eyes. So young, yet already learned how to scheme and deceive. I knew it. This is all because of her grandfather. He spoiled her rotten. That girl's life is ruined. My soul shook its head in protest. On the contrary, it was with my late grandfather that I experienced the best days of my life. When I was 5, my parents had my brother. They were too busy taking care of him and had no time for me, so they sent me to live with Grandpa in the countryside. Grandpa was a grumpy old man, always scowling, looking like the king of hell himself. The first time I met him, I was so scared I cried and cried, but my parents didn't stay. They rushed back into the car while I was still throwing tantrums on the ground. I chased after the car, running and running, but it kept getting farther and farther away. Grandpa hobbled after me with his cane. I tried to run faster so he wouldn't catch me. When I was finally exhausted and threw up by the roadside, Grandpa bent down, pointed to his hunchbacked back and said, "Come on, I'll carry you, we'll keep chasing them together." That day, Grandpa, with legs even weaker than mine, ran until he was wheezing like a buffalo. But eventually, I stopped crying. He rummaged through the entire house and found all sorts of drinks, fancy yogurt, full-fat milk, Jia Duobao herbal tea. I didn't know how long he had been saving them, but when I saw them, I pushed them away. "They're expired. I can't drink them." Grandpa picked them up carefully, eyes full of regret. "Oh dear. I couldn't bear to drink them. But no one ever visits. What a shame, what a shame." At first, I disliked this dark old man for being so scruffy. But later, I realized this scruffy man was the kindest person to me. The deep wrinkles on his face weren't dirt, they were medals granted by the sun after a lifetime of harvests. His calloused, rough fingers planted seeds of hope into the soil. A true farmer, he had given his life to the land. And when he grew old, he gave the rest of it to caring for me, a little seedling. Every morning, he carried a bamboo basket on his back and walked for miles through mountain paths just to buy milk to nourish me. His hens were lazy, laying only 2 eggs a day. I'd eat one in the morning and another at night. Grandpa would roast the eggs over the hot coal stove. They'd often burst open, filling the whole house with the rich scent of egg yolk. Farm eggs tasted far better than city eggs. 2 bites, and I'd finished one. I once asked him why he didn't eat any. He gnawed on a frozen potato and smiled kindly. "Old folks get sick from eating eggs. Potatoes are more nutritious. I was half convinced, but I secretly tried one of his frozen potatoes. It was truly awful. Sometimes, I would ask Grandpa when Mom and Dad would come back. He said, they'll come back when it snows. I hated snow, because it was so cold. But I still looked forward to the new year, because that meant they might return. I never imagined that I would leave the world on a snowy winter night like this, with no one who cared. On the first day of the new year, neighbors often dropped by to visit and exchange greetings. Though my parents didn't care much for those pleasantries, for the sake of maintaining harmony in the neighborhood, they still forced a smile and made fake offers of food. My little brother was different. He didn't bother greeting anyone. He just lay sprawled on the sofa, shouting, "Push the tower! Push the tower!" In the middle of the chatter, Auntie Wang from next door suddenly asked about me. "Where's Hanan?" Noticing the awkward silence, she added with a hint of sarcasm, "Hanan is such a thoughtful girl. You two already bought a house in the city, why send her back to the countryside for the holidays?" My parents smiled stiffly, visibly uncomfortable. It's nice in the countryside, much better air than all the concrete and steel here in the city. But in truth, they had fought hard to move into the city, just so my little brother could grow up in a better environment. Long ago, they could only afford a 2-bedroom rental. One room for them, one for my brother, and me. I stayed behind in the countryside. When Lunar New Year came, it was also the time I waited for my parents to visit me. I was so happy that I wanted to hug them, but Mom deliberately pushed me away and then exclaimed in mock surprise, "Wow, Hanan, why are you so dark? You look like a little black girl." Then the two of them burst into laughter, thrilled by what Mom thought was such a clever and hilarious joke. At that moment, my sense of inferiority swelled to the extreme. The mountain sun was harsh, and all the children here had dark skin. Even when we walked miles along mountain roads to reach the market, the clothes we could afford were outdated, long out of fashion. Shampoo came in small sachets, with no famous celebrities on the packaging, but this was already the best Grandpa could give me. In the end, I still became the shabby child in their eyes, but my younger brother, who grew up with our parents, was completely different. He wore stylish athletic wear, had fair skin, smelled good all over, wrapped in a warm wool scarf. He looked just like a prince from a TV drama. My parents always said that Hanan had suffered enough over the years, so they couldn't let me endure hardship too. That's why they treated my brother even better. Whatever he wanted, they gave him. He had a doll that could blink and say Mom. When I said I wanted a doll, my parents replied, "Next time, when we get a chance. You need to be a good girl, raising kids is hard work." But that next time was endlessly far away. Maybe only when they saw my cold, lifeless body would they finally understand. In front of my brother, I was always filled with shame and self-doubt. He would point at my red, cracked Highland skin and shout, "Do country hicks like you even know what KFC is? Ever heard of Starbucks? You smell like a cow." He could humiliate me in front of everyone, leaving me ashamed and awkward, just a little mud on his shoes, and my brother could cry his heart out in our parents' arms. But I stood quietly to the side, not even brave enough to ask for a single hug. Later, my parents bought a house with 3 bedrooms, one for them, one for my brother, one for guests. I still lived in the countryside. In the summer, they would generously let me stay with them for a while. I'll never forget, my brother blocked the doorway with his leather shoes, pointed at my snakeskin-patterned bag, and shouted, "Stinky country bumpkin. Get out of my house." I lowered my head in frustration, gently scratching the ground with my pink crystal slippers, tears welling in my eyes. My parents simply bent down to coax my brother with all sorts of promises, just to let me enter their house. "Mom and Dad have to work, we don't have time to take care of you. If your sister stays, she can cook for you. How about this? If you agree, we'll buy you a transforming robot. She can help you study too. Isn't that great? Be nice to your dad, okay?" That whole summer, I cooked nonstop, did endless loads of laundry, and was occasionally scolded by my brother as a stinky country girl. And just before the summer break ended, they would send me back to the countryside again. They said it was inconvenient for me to stay there, but they never said what was inconvenient, or for whom. As soon as I walked out the door, Mom would grab a bottle of alcohol spray and disinfect every corner of the house. Under the sunlight, the alcohol mist shimmered like a silvery fog, so beautiful it made my heart ache. Gradually, I grew used to life in the countryside with Grandpa. I got used to rolling in the mud during the summer, to hiking the mountains for firewood with him in the winter, the dog from the east house, the goose from the west house, everyone who saw me called me boss. After every day of mischief, Grandpa would take his old, threadbare towel and gently wipe the dirt from my face. He would smile kindly and say, "My darling little one." Every time I came back muddy from playing outside, Grandpa would wipe the dirt off my face with his old, worn-out towel. He'd smile gently and call me, "My precious little one." But even the most beautiful days eventually come to an end. That winter, when the pile of firewood I chopped for Grandpa hadn't yet reached my height, my parents returned. They wanted to take me with them. I refused. They got angry. Frustrated, they asked if I wanted to stay with Grandpa or go with them. Grandpa made the choice for me. He put on a stern face and told them to take me away quickly. At the time, I felt something wasn't right. Mom hastily threw 500 yuan to Grandpa. I told him to wait for me, that I'd be back soon. He nodded over and over. Before I left, Grandpa deliberately changed into a new outfit he had kept tucked away in the bottom of the wardrobe. He wobbled around in it and asked me if he looked nice. I touched the round golden patterns on the fabric and nodded. Yes, very nice. Back then, I was too young to recognize the style of morning clothes. I didn't know that would be the last time I ever saw Grandpa. He gently stroked my head and whispered a few parting words. I pressed my face against the shaking window of the car, watching his frail figure grow smaller and smaller, until the door closed, like a finished story. When I returned, I found the 500 yuan tucked into my pocket. It wasn't until much later that I learned the reason my parents had come to take me back was because Grandpa was gravely ill and didn't have much time left. Not long after, my parents left me home alone once more to take my younger brother to dance class, and I missed Grandpa even more. Then came the phone call that struck like lightning. Grandpa had passed away. I begged my parents to take me back to see him one last time. Dad hesitated, but Mom was indifferent, firmly refusing with the excuse that they had to attend my brother's dance class. They argued briefly, more out of formality than emotion, before agreeing that my brother was the priority. I was left crying miserably in front of the school gates, watched by everyone as if I were a joke. Even Grandpa's funeral, they held in secret, just to avoid the nuisance of my tears. Grandpa faded away like dust, quietly vanishing. But the memory of him weighed on me like Mount Tai, pressing down until I could barely breathe. Frustrated, they asked if I wanted to stay with Grandpa or go with them. Grandpa made the choice for me. He put on a stern face and told them to take me away quickly. At the time, I felt something wasn't right. Mom hastily threw 500 yuan to Grandpa. I told him to wait for me, that I'd be back soon. He nodded over and over. Before I left, Grandpa deliberately changed into a new outfit he had kept tucked away in the bottom of the wardrobe. He wobbled around in it and asked me if he looked nice. I touched the round golden patterns on the fabric and nodded. Yes, very nice. Back then, I was too young to recognize the style of morning clothes. I didn't know that would be the last time I ever saw Grandpa. He gently stroked my head and whispered a few parting words. I pressed my face against the shaking window of the car, watching his frail figure grow smaller and smaller, until the door closed, like a finished story. When I returned, I found the 500 yuan tucked into my pocket. It wasn't until much later that I learned the reason my parents had come to take me back was because Grandpa was gravely ill and didn't have much time left. Not long after, my parents left me home alone once more to take my younger brother to dance class, and I missed Grandpa even more. Then came the phone call that struck like lightning. Grandpa had passed away. I begged my parents to take me back to see him one last time. Dad hesitated, but Mom was indifferent, firmly refusing with the excuse that they had to attend my brother's dance class. They argued briefly, more out of formality than emotion, before agreeing that my brother was the priority. I was left crying miserably in front of the school gates, watched by everyone as if I were a joke. Even Grandpa's funeral, they held in secret, just to avoid the nuisance of my tears. Grandpa faded away like dust, quietly vanishing. But the memory of him weighed on me like Mount Tai, pressing down until I could barely breathe. They didn't realize, the soul of a house is its people. A house in the countryside, with someone living in it, can stand for 100 years. But without someone to care for it, it'll crumble in just 2 years after Grandpa passed. The house died too, leaking everywhere, wind sweeping through it. No longer able to shelter anyone from the rain or cold, the more they talked, the more animated they became, bringing up all of my flaws. It was as if the more they criticized me, the more they could ease their own uneasy hearts. They said I was annoying, fake, and after the age of 5, I stopped sharing anything with them. That raising me was a waste. Even a dog, once fed, would wag its tail in gratitude. I couldn't help but look at them and laugh through my tears. When I died, I was all skin and bones, hadn't felt what it was like to be full in a long time. Their argument woke my little brother. He stormed into the living room angrily. Can you two stop already? I stayed up late tonight. Can't you be quiet for once? Silence fell. He yawned and said, almost casually, oh, and give me another 5,000. I still owe my classmates some money. My parents sat still, faces turning sour at once. The comforting words they exchanged moments ago seemed to lose their effect. Their eyes unconsciously fell on the 200 yuan still clutched in Mom's hand. Dad looked up and asked cautiously. I've always treated you and your sister fairly. Haven't I? My brother didn't hesitate. No, not fair at all. His response was sharp and instant. She got to stay in the village all year, no one told her what to do. But I've had to take all kinds of classes, learn all kinds of instruments. You always favored her. Maybe he really believed he was the one who'd been wronged. But then why did my parents both blush? Were they fair? That day, after leaving the courthouse, my parents decided not to get divorced. Dad, with some hesitation, took 200 yuan from his wallet and, in a serious tone, said to me, "It's not that we don't want you. After all, you are our daughter. If you ever have trouble." Mom nudged him sharply with her elbow, cutting him off. Dad swallowed his words. "Forget it, we'll talk about it another time." Then the three of them walked away without looking back. I wandered from one cheap hostel to another, asking for room prices. The cheapest was 60 yuan per night. The best option for me was to find a job with food and lodging included. But after several days roaming the streets, I couldn't find a suitable one. At night, I sneaked into an internet cafe. It had heating. As long as you were thick-skinned enough, you could sleep on the chairs. When I was hungry, I bought a packet of instant noodles for 1.5 yuan, borrowed some hot water from the manager, and stuffed them into my mouth. The warm, savory flavor spread quickly. Just as I was about to eat, I realized I didn't have any utensils. Should I eat with my hands? While I stood there hesitating, the manager, still focused on his keyboard, like a magician, pulled a pair of disposable chopsticks from a drawer, leftovers from his takeout meals. I quickly bowed and thanked him. Only then did he look up at me, glance at the security camera, and quietly handed me a sausage, my treat. It was a corn-flavored shuanghui sausage. It smelled amazing. I didn't waste a single crumb. I even licked the ends clean. That night, instant noodles with sausage tasted like a feast. If only I could eat like this every day, but I hated myself for being so pathetic, and I swore I wouldn't spend the rest of my life living in an internet cafe. Things slowly started to get better. I began collecting bottles and cans from the streets. During the day, I looked for work while picking up recyclable trash. I stomped on aluminum cans with flair, a snakeskin backpack slung over my shoulder like a wandering swordswoman. Free and wild, one day, a woman around 40 or 50 called out to me, "Hey girl, want a high-paying job? You want one, don't you?" She said I'd only need to make phone calls in an office building. 8,000 yuan a month. Meals and lodging included. My eyes lit up. I nearly forgot about the sweet-smelling plastic bottle I was about to pick up. Just as I was about to follow her, the owner of the nearby bubble tea shop stormed out, yelling, "You rotten scammer. You dare scam people in front of my shop again? I'm calling the police." The woman fled at lightning speed, faster than any Olympic sprinter. The shop owner didn't let up. He turned on me next. "You stupid pig. You really believed her? You want to end up trafficked to the mountains. Married off to some greasy, middle-aged bachelor nobody wants? You'll regret it for life. Dumb as hell." I looked up at the sign above his shop, Snow King painted in bright red, and grabbed onto his leg, asking if he could hire me. After finding out my age, the owner shook his head. "No way. You're not of working age yet. I can't legally hire you." Crushed, I let go, ready to walk away with my snakeskin bag. The owner groaned, holding his head. "The counter's filthy, the place is a mess, and we're short-staffed." I was quick to catch on. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work cleaning. By noon, I had almost the entire shop spotless. The owner kept a cold face, afraid I'd try to exploit the situation. "Don't think I'm hiring you. I'm just giving you a meal to say thanks." I nodded vigorously, like a garlic chopper. I loved food. At the table, the shop owner even added an extra serving of braised pork. The glossy red meat made my mouth water. I chewed through the greens first, savoring their blandness while imagining the rich, sweet, fatty taste of the pork. He picked up 2 pieces and dropped them into my bowl. "Why aren't you eating the meat? Eat first. I'll give you more." Free and wild, one day, a woman around 40 or 50 called out to me, "Hey girl, want a high-paying job? You want one, don't you?" She said I'd only need to make phone calls in an office building. 8,000 yuan a month. Meals and lodging included. My eyes lit up. I nearly forgot about the sweet-smelling plastic bottle I was about to pick up. Just as I was about to follow her, the owner of the nearby bubble tea shop stormed out, yelling, "You rotten scammer. You dare scam people in front of my shop again? I'm calling the police." The woman fled at lightning speed, faster than any Olympic sprinter. The shop owner didn't let up. He turned on me next. "You stupid pig. You really believed her? You want to end up trafficked to the mountains. Married off to some greasy, middle-aged bachelor nobody wants? You'll regret it for life. Dumb as hell." I looked up at the sign above his shop, Snow King painted in bright red, and grabbed onto his leg, asking if he could hire me. After finding out my age, the owner shook his head. "No way. You're not of working age yet. I can't legally hire you." Crushed, I let go, ready to walk away with my snakeskin bag. The owner groaned, holding his head. "The counter's filthy, the place is a mess, and we're short-staffed." I was quick to catch on. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work cleaning. By noon, I had almost the entire shop spotless. The owner kept a cold face, afraid I'd try to exploit the situation. "Don't think I'm hiring you. I'm just giving you a meal to say thanks." I nodded vigorously, like a garlic chopper. I loved food. At the table, the shop owner even added an extra serving of braised pork. The glossy red meat made my mouth water. I chewed through the greens first, savoring their blandness while imagining the rich, sweet, fatty taste of the pork. He picked up 2 pieces and dropped them into my bowl. "Why aren't you eating the meat?" "Eat first. I'll give you more." That night, they wouldn't let me go back to the internet cafe. They said there were extra beds in the dorm. I didn't want to trouble them and refused repeatedly. One grabbed my hand, another pushed me gently from behind. If they could have, they would have carried me there. I didn't have a blanket, so they voluntarily gave me their unused ones. That night, curled up in the little nest they prepared for me, tears streamed down my face. Clearly, some of those sheets and quilts were brand new, tags still attached. At the internet cafe, I never dared to sleep too soundly. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, someone would grope me, not for money, just to take advantage. I lived in constant fear. But wrapped in their care and warmth, I had the best sleep since I started drifting. I had no talent or special skills, only the ability to work harder than anyone else just to stay. I was like a tightly strung violin string, afraid that if I ever loosened even a little, they'd be like my parents, stop needing me, but thankfully, they weren't. After working for a month, payday arrived. The shop owner paid me exactly 3,500 yuan, 3,500 yuan. That night, buried beneath my blanket, I counted the money over and over again. Finally, I confirmed, I really had 3,500 yuan. Here, I wasn't just paid, I was also praised. The women always had something to say, always something to complain about. But after venting, they'd forget they even argued. Watching them laugh until their bellies ached made me smile too. When they were in good spirits, they couldn't resist hugging me. I would always flinch instinctively, afraid my cancer might be contagious. Though I knew it wasn't, after learning about my illness, they launched an online fundraiser on their own initiative. With the money they raised, they insisted, absolutely insisted, that I must get treatment. They said absolutely 3 times. The fire inside me that had long since gone cold suddenly sparked to life. After one long night of thought, I picked up the phone and called the doctor. "Doctor," I said, "the ladies here said they could help me raise money. When I've saved enough, I'll come for treatment." I heard the doctor's voice crack. "Good. I'll wait for you." The dark clouds in my heart began to clear. I even started hoping that I could become a good person, just like those kind-hearted souls, but fate always knows how to break me completely. In the middle of a bleak life, a sudden flare of warmth is often the sign that the last ember is about to die out. 3.5 months into the job, an unexpected visitor walked into the shop. My younger brother swaggered into the shop with a gang of thugs. A cigarette dangling from his lips, spewing curses left and right. When he looked up and realized the shop assistant was me, he immediately warned me, if I dared to tell our parents, he would kill me. Because he always played the part of the obedient son in front of them, I wasn't afraid to expose him. But instead of facing consequences, he turned around and accused the shop owner of employing an underage worker illegally. The authorities fined the shop 10,500 yuan, forced it to shut down, and even the sisters who worked there lost their jobs. Although they kept telling me it wasn't my fault, the truth was undeniable. I had dragged them down with me. Fairy tales always end so suddenly, don't they? Beyond the happily ever after of princes and princesses, what becomes of the ordinary people, struggling to survive? After placing the wages I'd painstakingly earned, over 10,000 yuan, on the shop's altar, I quietly left. Even though it wasn't enough to cover the shop's fine, it was all I had. All I had left was the 200 yuan my parents had once given me. After a long deliberation, I mailed it back to them. As expected, they simply saw it as another act of defiance, another excuse to teach me a lesson. But life itself had already taught me enough bitter lessons. Even my own family seemed to wish for my downfall. How cruel. If there is a next life, I don't want to come back here again. My soul wasn't set free. It remained tethered to this family, wandering aimlessly. My brother didn't become the model son my parents dreamed of. It didn't take long for him to bring disaster upon himself. He often stole money from them to spend frivolously, and hung out with gangsters, getting into fights. To protect his so-called brothers, he injured someone badly, and didn't come out unscathed either. His right arm ended up in a cast. Because he threw the first punch, my parents had to pay compensation again. At the hospital, amidst their scolding, my brother sat half upright in bed, beaming. What do you two know? In the real world, you've gotta have brotherhood to fit in. Before Dad could rebuke him, the hospital room door was kicked open. A gangster strutted in, bleached hair, tight pants, worn-out Dowda shoes slapping against the floor. He marched straight up to my brother, Han not Min, wearing a slanted crossbody bag. He spoke with that familiar street drawl. Min bro, how ya holding up? Once you're healed, let's go finish that punk off. Then he scratched his nose. Oh right, we went out to eat but didn't bring enough cash. Spot us a little, yeah? My brother frantically blinked at him. Signaling our parents were there, Dad hurled his insulated lunchbox at the thug and chased him down the corridor, smacking him on the butt as he fled. When Dad returned, panting, he pointed at my brother and shouted, "You're getting more outrageous by the day. If you were even a tenth as well behaved as your sister, I'd be thanking the heavens." My spirit stood silently beside the hospital bed, watching my father in confusion. They called me obedient, yet they were the ones who abandoned me. Adults really are strange, my brother sneered. If I were as obedient as her, you two would have thrown me away long ago. Mom froze, her eyes flicking to Dad in panic. She reached out and lightly patted my wayward brother. "We gave you everything we had, and this is what you've become?" He glared at her. "Don't think you can PUA me. You didn't raise her either, and she still walked away from you, didn't she? You better take a long look in the mirror." Then, without hesitation, he demanded, "Transfer me 3,000 yuan, or I'll leave just like she did." I almost laughed at myself for being so pathetic, laughed at his childish delusions. Dad could only point a trembling finger at him. "You." Then Dad clutched his chest, slid slowly down against the doorframe, leaving Mom in a panic, sobbing and calling for the doctor. He didn't have to be rushed into the emergency room, but he was gasping for breath, overwhelmed with fury. Mom, at a loss for anyone to turn to, pulled out her phone and searched for my number. She tapped it 3 times, but couldn't get through. She stared at the unable to connect message on the screen, eyes brimming with tears, her voice choked with rage. All of them, heartless little wolves. Cold-blooded bastards. Damn it. I'm done caring. If you die, I won't shed a single tear. Even though they couldn't reach me, it never occurred to them that something bad might have happened to me. No concern, only blame, always just blame. Later, they decided that instead of letting my brother roam the city getting into trouble with street punks, it was better to take him back to the countryside for a change of pace. And while they were at it, they'd drop by to see me. I felt an odd mix of dread and anticipation. What would they feel when they saw my corpse? Fear? Regret? Disgust? They wandered around the toy section of a shopping mall, searching high and low. I was puzzled. What were they looking for? Mom clung to a shop assistant, gesturing with her hands to describe something. "We're looking for a doll, the kind you can charge, the kind that blinks and talks, one that can call out Mom." It turned out to be the doll I had longed for as a child. The one I'd wanted all my life. The one they only remembered I wanted after I was dead. The staff rummaged through the storeroom and eventually found a forgotten one, dusty but still intact. My parents happily bought it. Han will be thrilled when she sees this. Then we can have a proper talk with her. Dad feigned arrogance. "I'm her father. Why should I lower myself for my daughter? If she wants it, she can take it. If not, so be it." I hoped he'd maintain that same arrogant tone when he saw my frozen body. With the doll in hand, they headed to the clothing section, smiling politely at the shop assistant, saying they wanted to buy new clothes for their eldest daughter. "What's her height?" asked the assistant. They looked at each other in confusion. Wait? Still clueless, eventually, they settled on a generic, medium-sized outfit. Something safe. Something easy to wear, and they genuinely believed I would be grateful for it. Snow held outside as they drove through the blizzard. But luckily, souls don't feel the cold. I followed their car as it rolled to a stop in front of Grandpa's old house. The brick wall was crumbling. Mom stepped out and, seeing the closed gate, began grumbling. Her black heels sank into the snow, sometimes deep, sometimes shallow. Damn it. Still asleep at noon. Useless. Can't even answer the damn phone. Just wait till I get my hands on her. Dad was already regretting the spontaneous visit. Should have known better than to come see her. Look at this blizzard. It's freezing. Such a mood killer. The rusty iron gate creaked open. The yard lay blanketed in untouched snow, no footprints, pristine and undisturbed, except for one spot in the middle, where a dark figure curled up, nearly buried in snow. Mom thought it was just a bundle of clothes blown in by the wind and casually walked over to give it a kick, but when her foot struck something solid, she collapsed to the ground in horror. Ah! Her scream pierced through the icy wind. She gasped for air, refusing to believe her eyes. Am I seeing things? That kick had dislodged the snow, revealing my stiffened body beneath. My brother's eyes widened in terror. It's her. Dad followed the direction of his pointing finger. Wading through the snow in long strides. My body was frozen stiff, like a slab of meat kept in deep freeze. Dad rushed forward and turned me over. I was curled up tight, my face buried in my arms, lashes dusted with frost, like a little cat, peacefully asleep. I couldn't bear to watch myself like that. I slowly closed my eyes. Mom screamed, her voice raw and full of grief. Maybe she was terrified by the way I looked in death, My brother, horrified, stumbled to the side and vomited, yelling that he wanted to leave. Inside the house, my parents sat in silence, each with a different expression. Only now did they realize that the countryside home they had thought would be cozy and protective had become worn and drafty. Vulnerable to wind and snow, on the table, the buns had turned rock hard. A bowl of water was frozen solid. In the stove, sweet potatoes lay cold and gray in the ashes. The traces of my past life were scattered around them, quiet reminders of the life I'd endured. Dad sat there, stunned, unable to speak. Mom broke the silence, her voice bitter. I told you we should have come to see her sooner, but you kept saying she'd just cling to us if we did. Now look. Enough. Dad slammed his palm down on the table, sending up a puff of dust. I told you, let her visit Grandpa. If she didn't, she'd resent us forever. But you wouldn't listen. Now you blame me? Mom's eyes welled up. You're the one who said you were too busy. That you couldn't take care of both Min Min and Han Han. Are you really blaming this all on me? After a while, they both gave up blaming each other and chalked my death up to an unfortunate accident, just bad luck. No one's fault. This conclusion gradually soothed their expressions, as if the guilt had lifted. Then suddenly, the phone rang. Startled, they both turned. Following the sound, they found my old charger still plugged into the wall, connected to my phone, which was still being charged. It was unmistakably mine. Dad, still unsure, cautiously picked it up. It was the nurse calling, asking when I'd be coming in for chemotherapy. Dad frowned. Chemotherapy? What chemotherapy? When she realized it was my father on the line, the nurse explained how I had developed cancer. The phone slipped from Dad's hand. His whole body went limp as he collapsed to the side. Mom covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. How could this happen? She was so young. So it was real. She really was sick. She cried out for help, and we ignored her. We even mocked her, said she was pretending. Clutching Dad's shirt, Mom sobbed and tore at the fabric. We killed her. We did this to Han Han. It's my fault. She could have lived a good life. Dad shoved her away, no longer caring about appearances, sobbing like a child. Don't you think I knew? Don't you think I knew my Han Han? I doubted my own eyes. Were they really crying? Truly regretting what they'd done? What happened to their parental pride? Was it gone now that I was gone, but what good did it do? I was already dead. Dad contacted the funeral home to arrange a proper service for me, hoping I could leave this world with dignity. Mom packed up my things and took off her own coat to wrap me in it. But my body, stiff and unyielding, could only fit into the trunk of the car. On the way back, they continued to argue, this time about who owed me more. Eventually, Dad, overwhelmed by emotion and distracted on the icy road, lost control of the car. It slammed into a tree. All three of them were injured to varying degrees. Smoke rose from the hood. The first thing Mom and Dad did wasn't check on my brother, but to leap out of the car and rush to the trunk. Mom cradled my frozen body and whispered, I'm sorry, Han Han, it's all my fault. I dragged you into this. Dad stroked my hair, tears streaming down his face. Why, Han Han? Why didn't you give us a chance to make it right? Can't we turn things around? Strangely enough, now that I was dead, they acted like they truly loved me. From the back seat, my brother finally couldn't take it anymore. Holding his injury, he opened the car door and shouted, all you care about is her. She's dead. And now you almost killed me too. But seeing that they didn't care about him either, only focused on arranging my body, he stormed off in the opposite direction. It was only much later that Mom and Dad realized he was missing and began to search for him. Eventually, he sent them a threatening message, give me 30,000 yuan and I'll come back. As a spirit, I watched him, slouched in a private room of an internet cafe, headphones on. Boasting to a bunch of delinquents, just watch. They'll be begging me to come back and throwing money at me. My sister's dead now, they have no choice but to worship me like some god. The gang all flattered him. Brother Min, you're a legend. Back at the funeral home, Mom tearfully dressed me in the new outfit they had just bought for me. Ironically, after all these years, it was the first time she'd ever given me new clothes, only they were for my burial. As she shook out my old clothes, a small notebook fell from the pocket. My heart tightened. I wanted to snatch it back, but my hand passed through it. It was my notebook, where I had recorded the names of everyone who had ever shown me kindness. Using the list, my parents tracked down the internet cafe manager. To show their gratitude, they handed him a thick red envelope stuffed with cash. The manager remained cold. He took the envelope and counted the money. Then, lifting his head, he gave them a scornful smile. He flung the money in their faces. Now you want to act generous with strangers? Why didn't you treat your daughter that way? His voice cracked with emotion. Do you know what her life was like here? 1 pack of instant noodles a day. Skin and bones. Her face swollen from malnutrition. What kind of parents are you? He paused, overwhelmed with emotion. Forget it. You found her. Just treat her better from now on. My parents covered their faces and sobbed. Tears streamed down Mom's nose as she lost control of her emotions. Han Han. Our Han Han is gone. What? A furious voice exploded across the cafe. They were thrown out, humiliated. The two of them looked at each other, eyes filled with regret. They walked faster now, as if desperate to uncover what had really happened before my death. What exactly had driven me to the end? At the convenience store, the employees looked at each other, hesitating, until my parents pulled out a photo. The girl who picked through the trash? Their faces turned bright red as pain stabbed through their hearts. She picked trash? To sell? Mom asked in disbelief. To sell? The staff repeated, frowning, eyes filled with contempt. One of the women stepped forward, grabbed Mom by the arm, and dragged her out behind the store. Before my parents could ask anything, the woman shoved Mom's face toward the dumpster. The stench was overwhelming, sour, rotten. Mom gagged and vomited. The employee shouted, "See this? This is where she dug for food. She lived like this. And you too? You're her parents. Where the hell were you? You wear designer clothes, carry luxury bags, and your daughter survived by eating garbage." Mom couldn't take it anymore. She collapsed onto the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. "My Han Han, why did you have to suffer so much and never come home?" Dad took a deep drag from his cigarette, then stubbed it out on the back of his hand. The sizzle echoed in the silence. Watching their regret, I felt no warmth at all. If they had given me even 1,000th of the love they gave my brother, I wouldn't have ended up living such a miserable life. In the end, they visited the Snow King dessert shop. The shop owner turned her back to them. Fists clenched tightly. "We're closed today. Cleaning up, no service." Mom and Dad said that I had passed away, and they just wanted to see the place where I once lived for the last time. Everyone in the store froze. "What did you say?" Upon hearing the whole story, the owner laughed out loud. My parents couldn't make sense of it. "You really don't know how Han Han died?" Mom sobbed, a bit confused. "Didn't she die of cancer?" The owner suddenly lost control and screamed, "Cancer didn't kill her. You did. You and that so-called good son of yours." Dad looked stunned. "What does Min Min have to do with this?" Only then did my parents finally learn the whole truth. At first, I had resolved to fight the illness. I could have survived through the winter, maybe even longer, but in the end, every last bit of hope was buried under this cold season. By them, I had never seen them so distraught, crying like children who'd just lost their candy. This grief came from the deepest part of their souls. As I watched the trial of their own consciences unfold, I, too, shed silent tears. But what did it matter now? I was already gone. Mom and Dad arranged to meet my brother at a restaurant. He strolled in with a lollipop in his mouth and slouched in a chair, looking smug. "So, you finally regret it now? I knew you'd come begging me to return. That's why I'm raising the price, add another 10,000. But my parents stared at him coldly. With calm, firm voices, they said, "From now on, we're cutting all ties with you." I stared at them in surprise, thinking it was just a bluff, but their eyes were too steady. Too serious. My brother's half-smile froze. "What?" Then, as if he suddenly understood, he sneered, "Oh, I get it. You're trying to manipulate me with this drama. Trying to guilt-trip me so I'll stay with you forever? Dream on." Mom choked through her tears. "Your sister could have lived independently. But you blocked her only way out. You made her illness worse. You're the one who killed her." Seeing he'd been exposed, my brother stopped pretending. "And what about you too? Why are you only blaming me? You treated her terribly when she was alive. Now that she's dead, you want to act all loving and noble? Don't you feel disgusted with yourselves?" Clearly, they had no intention of arguing anymore. They stood up. "That's enough. We have to take care of your sister's funeral." Panicked, my brother grabbed Dad's sleeve. "What about my 30,000? I owe people money. If you don't give it to me, you'll be the one killing me." Dad shoved his hand away and walked off without turning back. No one expected a vengeful thug, hiding in a dark corner, to rush out and stab repeatedly with a knife. My brother froze. Before he could react, he was being dragged away by the attacker. They ran straight through my spirit and disappeared into the distance. Mom clutched Dad's bleeding body, screaming, "Call 120. Hurry." Dad was seriously injured. Mom waited anxiously outside the emergency room, but within hours, the hospital was in chaos again. Two young men had crashed a motorcycle while speeding. One had scraped off half his helmet. The other, without a helmet, died instantly. That boy was my younger brother, Han, not Min. Overnight, Mom's hair turned completely white. Outside the hospital window, snow began to fall again. I watched as she knelt in the hallway, sobbing and repenting. "Han Han. If I hadn't been so biased, would all this still have happened? Your father and I regret it. Please, forgive us." But it was all too late. I turned around. A soft light gradually emerged behind me. At the end of the light, I saw the person I had missed most. Grandpa smiled gently and waved. "Come here, my little girl. Let Grandpa give you a hug." Thank you for listening to the story with MoonWhisper. If you find it interesting, please give MoonWhisper one like, one follow so that I have more motivation to create more good stories. Love you guys.